Okay, we're at the Mishnah on Pei Tes Amud Aleph. Good morning. We're learning as Chusr for Shleim Filan Chaya Basara. The Mishnah says, "Ma'arvin nischei harim b'nichsei elim." The way Rashi explains this is talking about the Nesachim, right? The minchas Nesachim that come along with a oilo or shlamim. So you have different karbanos have different Nesachim. So when someone brings a par, there's this you bring, like we said, I think it was a chatzi hen, which is 6 lugim, and for elim it's 4, and 3 for a 3 lugim for a keves. So if you were ma'arav nischei parim and nischei elim, if you mix up the nesachim of parim with nesachim of elim, or nichsei kvasim and nichsei kvasim, or lambs together with lambs. While the amount of shemen you do for parim and elim is different, they have an equivalent difference in the amount of flour. So the ratio of flour to oil remains the same. But they are different than kvasim. Let's see the Rashi. Ma'arvin nichsei parim. Rashi niksav yad. Minchas nichsei parim and minchas nichsei elim. The ratio, the amount of their mixture is the same. Shnei lugin lisar. There's 2 lugin per isar. The tani leil shisha lugin lepar v'sailas havlu shloisha esrainim. There's 3 esrainim for par, and there's 6 lugin of oil. Shloisha esrainim of flour to connect 6 lugin of oil. The sevikav el ben baka mincha sailas gimel esrainim. You have a half a hen, which is 6, against the 3 esrainim. The hainu shisha lugin. La'ayel da lugin v'seilas shnei esrainim la'ayel. There's 2 esrainim for an ayel, 2 esrainim of flour, opposite the 4 lugin. So it has the same consistency. So if the 2 of them mix, it's not a problem. This is the Havamina. The Gemara is going to go away from that, but that is currently the operating assumption. While nichsei kvasim, so Rashi, gimel lugin lisarim, k'dechsev yisar and echad la'keves echad, k'dechsev bol v'shem and kosus revias ahin, the hainu gimel lugin. It has 3 lugin for one isar, as opposed to the other 2, the ayel and the par, that had 2 lugin per isar. So this has more shemen in proportion to the amount of flour. So therefore, you can't mix the kvasim with the par or the ayel, but the par and the ayel can be mixed with each other. That at least is what the Mishnah seems to be saying. You can mix their nesachim together. Sheyoim b'shal emesh. Did I mix a word?
Yeah, you skip shal yachid.
Yeah. Shal yachid b'shal tzibur. You can mix a yachid's mincha together with that of tzibur, or shal yoim b'shal emesh. You can mix from one day or to the next. It doesn't make a difference, like the Rashi says, as long as you can do the nechsachim of a yachid with the tzibur, as long as the proportions are the same. Obviously, it doesn't mean you can do kvasim of a tzibur together with the ayel of a yachid, but as long as the portions are the same, or even though that, like we've come across in the past, a mincha does not have to be brought on the same day as the carbon; it could be brought a week later. So you could mix something whose carbon had been brought previously a week earlier, the mincha with the mincha with the carbon whose mincha was brought today, the mincha whose carbon was brought today. Aval ein ma'arvin nichsei kvasim and nichsei parim ve'elim. But you can't mix the nesachim of a keves, which has a more oil than flour. Its proportion of oil to flour is higher, together with parim and elim. However, if you mix them together, you made your mincha, let's say your ayel, and then you also made separately a mincha for a keves, and you had mixed together the flour with the oil. v'nisarvu, and then afterwards they were nisarv ksher. Then they're kosher. But if you mix them together before they become mixed, so they never got the proper ratio, the proper consistency, then it's possible. Obviously, this Mishnah is giving mashmoyesin of lechatchila and b'diavad that keep on crossing each other, and the Gemara is going to address hakeves haba ima oimer, the keves that comes together, the shnei kvas, the keves of that you come the carbon ha'oimer, aval pishim and chasei kfula leha nechas kfula. Even though the flour for it, there was two esroinim for that keves instead of one, it still had the same quarter of a saw, which is 3 lugim for its oil. So it had a higher proportion of flour to oil than a typical keves. Correct Gemara. Veramini. We have a brisa that says if you have 2 karbanos and the carbon has chaylev, that's the murim that has to be burnt on the mizbech, you can't mix the chalavim of one carbon with another carbon to be mocked to them. You have to be mocked to each one separately. So how could our Mishnah start off and say ma'arvin nichsei parm, nichsei elim, nichsei kvasim, and nichsei kvasim? How can we say it's okay if we see that you can't mix together 2 different karbanos? Well, obviously there's 2 karbanos and that's 2 minchas, but the rule should stay the same. If we say that you can't mix chalavim, why are you allowed to mix the menachos? Even if their proportions are the same, you shouldn't be allowed to mix them. Amar Rav Yochanan, im nisarvukan. Rav Yochanan says it's b'diavad. It doesn't mean that you can do it l'chatchila. It means if they got mixed together, it's kosher. Amar ihachi. If that's the case, what about the rest, the continuation of the Mishnah? Ve'ein ma'arv nichsei kvasim and nichsei parim ve'elim, which is mashma v'afilu nisarvu nami loy. Right? It says ein ma'arv nichsei kvasim and nichsei parim ve'elim. So that's mashma. You can't do it at all. Practically, Marava Miktani Sefer Bal and Elu b'fnei Atzim ve'Elu b'fnei Atzmin. If you boil them separately, v'nisarvu ksherin, that says that it's kosher. Mechal dereish l'chatchila kamer. Right? It says, it's over there. It says in nisarvu that it's kosher. That's mashma b'diavad. But the Reisha seems to be saying l'chatchila you can't be ma'arav, right? And that's the mashmayis when you read the Mishnah. It sounds like it's saying l'chatchila and then me'ein ma'arav nichsei fasim and nichsei param. But if you do them, if you boil them b'fnei atzum, then it's kosher, which sounds like b'diavad mashma. The first part was l'chatchila. Amar Abaya, hachi kamar. Ma'arvin yenon. Im nisarvin silson v'sham. We're talking about a whole different case than was evident from the discussion of the Mishnah so far. We're talking about legabi the yayin. All this being nisarav that we're talking about is talking about whether the beginning of the Mishnah that says you can be ma'arav your ayil together with your par, but you can't be ma'arav the keves and the kvasim with kvasim, but not kvasim with elim and parim. That's talking about being ma'arav the shemen in a case where you had already b'di eved were mis'arav the soilus and shemen. We're not saying l'chatchila you can be ma'arav the soilus and shemen, but if you had already done so, once you did that, you could also be ma'arav the yayin. At that point, then the yayin you could l'chatchila be ma'arav as well.
In other words, the shemen and the flour and the oil are only b'diavad. Look at chili, you can't, but if you do, then it's b'diavad good. And then once you did that, then already the wine you can already look at chili do.
Right, and the flour and shemen are only b'diavad good if their belila is the same.
The ratios.
If you misarv things that were not the same, then they're even b'diavad not.
What do you mean they're mixing the yain? They wouldn't mixing the yain with the
No, it means one yain with another yain. That means when they take two menachos, instead of doing each one separately on the mizbech, the yain was poured into these holes in the mizbech. They said we'll make like a huge, can full of all the menachos and do it together. So that's allowed to do. It's just like we said, like the chalev. The chalev they would burn on the fire. It was all getting burnt in the same place. So Enterprise and Kayin said, let me take the chalev of the last 10 karbanos and throw it all on at the same time. But then it's no, you have to do them separately. It's not clear to me. I guess the idea. I guess once you ma'arav the silas and the shemen, that din that we have to be makdir the chalavim separately, once it was already abrogated by putting together the silas and shemen, there's nothing to be gained by keeping the yayin separate. It's a little hard to understand the different parts of the carbon. They're all called nesachim. They're all part of the nesachim. But why wouldn't you have to do each part as good as possible? But vice versa, that's not. Even l'chatchila, you can do the yayin together. That's mashma. That only because you did the silas and the shemen, you did the flour and the oil together, illegally, then you can do the yayin l'chatchila. But that's mashma l'chatchila. You can't just go ahead and do the yayin together. Vatanya. We have a brisa that says you can't be ma'arv the yayin. Doesn't sound like you can't do the silas and shemen, and then if you do them together, you can do the yayin. Elam Rabaya Hakikam. Another pshat. Heicha the hukter silsim v'shamnan. When the silas and shemen was already brought, not that you were ma'arav them, but you had previously brought the two karbanos. You had carbon A and carbon B. You had an ayil and a par, and you already brought the flour and oil and burnt it on the mizbech, but both the ayil and the par, ma'arav and yayin l'chatchila. At that point, you could be ma'arav the yayin. Heicha the loyokter im nisarvin silsam v'shaman ma'arvin namiyem v'lav ein ma'arvin. So it's not a question of whether you are ma'arav already the yayin and shemen. You have to have already been makdir the yayin and shemen. At that point, then you're allowed to do the yayin, the yanis together. Now it's even harder to understand what the svara behind it is. Like why? Unless it's just hard. It's two different parts of the carbon. I guess they're more closely linked, and at this point there's no distinctions. It's close enough to the end that we don't care about keeping it distinct anymore. So Dilma, what's the? So the Gemara explains what the reason is. Dilma This is all. So now we're going away from saying this is a svara. Now it's a takana. We're worried about that if you allow people if you allow them. So we're saying ba'etzem you could be ma'arav them, but the reason why we don't allow you before haktara, this is what we're saying, that you could be ma'arav. The problem is yayin betzim you could always be ma'arav. So I guess that yayin is just not distinct enough. It's for some reason it doesn't have its own identity that it has, or maybe the type of hakrava that you do from yayin, that you pour it down a hole, is not hakrava. It's not getting burnt on the mizbeach. So there's no need to distinguish between them. So why is there a restriction that you can't be ma'arav the yayin before haktara of the yayin and shemen? It's because we're worried that you'll mix up the yayin and shemen and do the same thing. The yayin and shemen is murt on his back. That we learn out from the haktara of the chalavim, that it has to be separate. So it's really just a gzeira on the yayin that l'chatchila you shouldn't do so. But after the haktara of the yayin and shemen, there's no longer a worry that you're going to mix them up, then we allow. Hold on 1 second. Hey, see, He already got his sleeves rolled up. Hey, you're the guy who ran to Florida. Yeah. We said the keves that goes in the together with the Eimer, even though the mincha is doubled, meaning the amount of soilas is 2 esrainim instead of 1. The shemen that comes along with it and the yayin as well remain the same. It says 2 esrainim. It's not really a limud. It's saying it straight out that it brings 2 esrainim instead of 1. Maybe since the mincha is doubled, the yayin is also doubled. The amount of yayin is a revi'as ahin. A revi'as ahin, like we said, is 3 lugin. It has the same 3 lugin as any other mincha. I would say the yayin that the Torah says is a revi'as ahin, it's not mixed with the flour, so that's the reason why it remains the same. It doesn't increase in proportion to the amount of flour. Maybe the shemen should be doubled because it gets mixed with the mincha. We want to retain the same proportions. It's nechasim, it's nesachim, kol nesachav lo yehei ela revi'as. It's nesachim should only be a revi'as hahin, which is 3 lugin. My Talmud, where the Gemara says, how do you see Niskai called? How does Niskai tell you that the nesachim of the shemen should also be a revi'as hahin? Where do you see that from the word? Amar Rebbe Elazar, ksiv. It's written in the pasuk v'niska with a hey, which is lashon nekeva. So it's referring to the nesachim itself, the yayin. V'karinon v'niskai with the lashon zachar. A keves is a lashon zachar. So now it's talking about the nesachim of the keves. So that tells you af shemen namribis. The kri and the ksiv are mashma 2 separate things. It's mashma, one is referring to the nesachim itself. The other one is the nesachim of the keves. So we say the second one is to tell you the shemen, that the shemen should be the same as the yain. Amar Rav Yochanan, Asher Mitzayra, Sheshachtu Shaloi Lishma. Someone shechted a Asher Mitzayra Shaloi Lishma. So we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of Zvachim. It's a good 5 months ago, but we still remember we started off, we said that karbanos that were brought Shaloi Lishma, they're kosher, v'loy alu l'baylim l'shem chayim. You proceed with the carbon, you bring the carbon, but you're going to have to bring another carbon. The baylim are going to have to bring another one to be yaitza their chiyuv. So when you bring an asham mitzayra, that's trying to be metar the mitzayra. If you shech the shalai l'shma, the mitzayra remains a mitzayra. It's a kosher carbon, but the mitzayra remains a mitzayra. There was a Manda Amar over there who had said that asham is like a chatas, that it's not even kosher at all, but we're going not like that. So asham mitzayra sheshachtu shalai l'shma ton nisachim. You still have to bring the nisachim. Shemi ater aymer kain. If you don't bring the nesachim that go along with the asham, asham is we always talk about nesachim that go along with the oila and the shlamim. Generally, ashamis do not have nesachim, but the asham mitzayra is an exception amongst ashamis that it also has nesachim. So if you were not to bring after you brought your asham shaloi l'shma that remained kosher, but it's leil bam shem paiva, you have to bring also nesachim, because if you don't bring nesachim, you're going to passel it. You're going to passel it, and we learned in the Mishnah that the carbon that's brought shalei l'shma is kosher. Maskef lo Rav Menachos bar Gada elamiata keves habayim ma'ayim. The keves that comes with the ayim sheshachtu shalei l'shma tehem chasek fula. You have to bring a mincha. If you bring it shalei l'shma, you have to bring a double mincha. You have to bring the double mincha that was described, the 2 esrainim. If you don't bring the proper mincha, it's going to be possible. In addition, another example of this rule that you just said, Legabi the Asham Mitzayra, that we said also applies to the kevis of the Aimer. The Talmud shel Shachar sheshachtu shaloi l'shma. The Talmud of every morning you'd bring one Talmud in the morning, one in the evening. If the Talmud shel Shachar was brought shaloi l'shma, meaning the person brought it and he says, I don't have in mind that it should be a Talmud. Instead, I have in mind it should be, Asham. Eton shnei gezirin b'kayin echad. It should require two pieces of wood brought by one kayin. Shemata Aimer Pesalte, because the Talmud Shel Shachar always requires that there be two pieces of wood brought by a kayin. The Talmud Shel Bein Habayit Shachtu Shalosh Meyeton Shnei Gezirim B'Shnei Kahanim. The general process, the procedure of the Talmud of the afternoon is you bring two pieces of wood brought by two kahanim. Whatever reason there's a distinction between the morning and the afternoon. But you should have to bring each one. We should say this rule. Why are we just saying this by the Asham Mitzara? We should say it by these Tamidim, and we should say it by the Kvasim, Haba, and Ma'emer. Because of all these also, if you don't bring the proper Nesachim together with it, it's going to be possible. So Gemara Einachanami. Einachanami, Taka, these things also Taka have the same din. Elam Abaye comes to address. So why did we only say the case of the Asham Mitzayra, and we didn't say the Kivse, the Kvasim of the Aimer, the what were they called? I can't remember. And the Tmidim. Elam Abaye Chadam Inayu Nakat. Abaye said we picked one case to bring, but Einachanami, the din is the same by all. He says, no, there's a reason why he only said Asham Mitzayra. These other ones, if you bring it Shaloi L'Shma, and you don't bring the Nesachim, they're oilus. They can switch over. If you don't bring the Nesachim, they can become a oilus Nedava, and oilus Nedava does not require these Nesachim. That oil does need Nesachim. Sagt Gemara, Elahachi lokmas like b'milsei Asham Nedava miyeka. By an Asham Mitzayra, no such thing as an Asham Nedava. It can't switch to become an Asham Nedava. Let me just quickly see the Rashi. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe oil doesn't need Nesachim. I don't have all my facts. Even after all these, how long are we learning this? 6, 7 months, 8 months. Tanya Kavas Rabbi Yochanan. Ben Gerai to Rabbi Yochanan. Asher Mitzvah Shaktu Shaloi L'Shma. Oy Shaloi Nasa Midame Al Gabe behind us. If you brought a Shaloi L'Shma, which is the case that we're talking about, or you didn't put the dam on the behind us, on the thumb and the toe of the Mitzayra. Harizu oil legabe mizbeach b'tor nesachim b'tzarach asham acha lahatirei. You're going to need the nesachim, and you're going to need another asham to be matir it. It's a raya to Rabbi Yochanan that asham shachtu shaloi l'shma still needs the nesach. Zok the Mishnah. Kol midas shebe mikdash. All of the measures in the mikdash hayu nigdashes. They were heaping, they were piled up. Chutz mishal kayin gadol shahir gedusha l'seicha. That was leveled off. If you remember, this is going to come up again. We had Reb Meir who had said there were two separate esrainim, one for the kayin gadol that was leveled off, because since his was divided into two, it would end up spilling if you try to do it from a heaping measure. So therefore, it had to come from a level measure. So that's what we're saying. All the midas in the mikdash. When the Gemara is going to ask, is this going like Rameir or like the Chachamim? But we're saying the Kayin Gadol everything had to be piled inside. Midas halach, that's talking about dry measures. Midas halach, but liquid measures, Berutzei and Kaddish, the liquid that's on top of the kli, that goes over the lip of the kli, that's called the Berutzein. The little bit of liquid that goes onto the lip of the kli, right, the top of the edge of the kli, that also is Kaddish. Omidas hayavash Berutzein chayil. But the amount of, if any dry measure goes on to over the top of the kli, meaning not over just the level of the kli, but it actually physically is over the edge of the kli, that's going to be chayil, right? That's, you understand the distinction between birutzei and heaping. Heaping just means that it's vertically on top of where the rest of the stuff is, the contents are. Birutzei is that it goes out past, let's say, it would be on top of this part. So it's not on top of the inside of the kli. Kedusha is like if it's like piled up like this over here. Berutzei,
and then you go for dry or wet.
Well, no, it's only there's no heaping by wet.
The wet
doesn't exist. What you do have surface tension that will allow a little bit to go and go over here.
That's Berutzei.
That's Berutzei, and that we say legabi kodesh, legabi lach is kodesh, and legabi yavish is chayil. Rabbi Kiva cuts the Gordy in that. He said, "Mamidas alach kodesh, lefikach Berutzei and kodesh." Rabbi Kiva says this whole distinction that you make between lach and yavish, by alach the Berutzei is kodesh because that's also included. Midas yavish chayil lefikach Berutzei and chayil. He says the measuring the isaron that's used by a yavish is it's not a klisharis. It's not mashuach. It's not kaddish at all. He holds that the midas yavish was not sanctified as a klisharis, and therefore, obviously, both the inside of the kli as well as the berutzei are not makadish. Rabbi Yossi, that's not the reason. He says, no, there's different reasons for the distinction. He says that by yavish, if you have, when you have a full cup of yavish and you put some more yavish on top of it, and it goes on to the berutzei, it never went into the kli. But lach, when you put lach in, lach goes in, and some of the lach that was in the kli spreads out and goes on top. So everything had a chance to be in the kli and the mekadesh from the inside of the kli.
Rabbi Kiva,
there's no discussion because Amidas Hayavish just was never, they never kaddish whether inside or the outside. What? That was a different shita. That's not Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva.
I want to know Rabbi Kiva, according to the story that he's giving, what would he hold of the heat?
The heaping, it doesn't make a difference. It's not.
It never went by
it's not a kaddish from the. It doesn't make a difference even if it was in the kli. It wouldn't become kaddish. He holds the kli sharas. It's not kaddish altogether. It comes kaddish from the shchita of the carbon, from something else, not becoming kaddish from the kli. Let's see the Rashi.
Did Rabbi Kiva argue on the Tanakama, or he just gives a reason?
Yeah, he's been chaylik on everyone. There's a whole new thing. He's certainly been chaylik on the Tanakama. He's saying a whole new world where a kli sharis, a midah of yavish, is not kaddish at all. It's not makadish even on the inside. We're going to see what the reasons are for the different shitas, but Rabbi Kiva is the simplest. He holds it's not makadish whether it's gadish, whether it's piled, whether it's even if it's not piled, it's not makadish. Let's see. You can see the Rashi on Rabbi Akiva. There's no Rashi in the. But you see Rashi, the regular Rashi. The midas of yavish is entirely chol. Becomes kaddish by what he says. When he says I'm a kaddish it, that's a makadosh, not the klishars. Mikdash makadosh birutzin loy tzarch loy makadosh lefikach berutzei chayil. He says. He only gives Makadosh. I think there's in the Gemara actually. I'm sorry, I jumped into the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva. But you see what anyway demonstrates what Rabbi Kiva says. Rabbi Kiva says the Kli is not Makadosh at all. Let's see the Gemara. money. First of all, like we alluded to when we said the Mishnah. Who is this Mishnah going like? The first thing that we said, that the Midas and the Migdash were heaping, except for that of the Chavite Kohen Gadol. Ira Meir Chad Gadash Hava. We're saying Kol Midas Migdash Hayu Nigdashas, except for that of the Kohen Gadol. But he says there was only one that was Gadash, that was piled up. Irabanan Chada Umachakava. According to Rabbanan, there was only one that was level. The Chachamim say that, like we said before, they agree l'chayra to Reb Meir that the Chavite Kohen Gadol has to be leveled, so everything is level. Rav Chizda l'olam Reb Meir umay kol midas kol medidas. It doesn't mean all the midas are heaping, but rather all of the measurements were done heaping, except for that of the Kohen Gadol. That was not done with heaping. Zaktugma midas halach birutz and kodesh. We said birutzei and kodesh. The liquid measures, the part that went over the lips, that was also kodesh. But my commitment, what's the base of this machlokes? Right? The Tanakama said that it's kodesh. Rabbi Kiva said the whole midas hayavish is not kodesh at all. And the last man the Amma said, Rabbi Yossi said the reason why the lach is kodesh is because it went inside and then came outside. Hanakama Sava midas halach nimshechas beimi bifnim beimi bechutz. He holds that when you are makadesh the kli medida for lach, for liquid, it included even the lip. You were makadesh not just the inside that it should be makadesh, but also the outside of the kli. This part of the kli, that includes this. So if it goes all the way around, what's on top of this is also going to be makadesh. Midas Yavish and Shechamim Bifnim, but the Midas Yavish gets Mashicha on the inside. It's only Mekadosh on the inside. Veloinim Shechas B'chutz, and therefore the Berutzein are Chayil. Rekiva Sava Midas Halach Nim Shechas Beim B'fnim Beim B'chutz. Rekiva says that the Midas Halach, just like the Tanakamo, is Mekadosh both on the inside and the outside. So therefore the Berutzein are going to be Kadosh just like what's inside. Midas Yavish Loinim Shechas Kolecha, and the Midas Yavish is not Nimshach at all. It's not Kaddish at all, both inside and outside. Rabbi Yossi Savar, he says no. The Midas Halach was also only Nimshach on the Bifnim and not B'chutz. So if that's the case, how could the Beritzeim be Kaddish? The Lach Nekar, Umagava Demana Ka'asi. The Lach, when you pour a Lach into the Kli, it goes into the Kli and then it pushes what's in the kli out, and then it goes over the edge. By yavish ain't an eka. But the yavish, when you put into a yavish, it's not moving. When you put on top and it ends up on the birutzin, it's something that was never in the kli. What does it help by lach that you're saying goes in the kli and now it comes out? A person, when he brings a mincha, he says that he has das to be a kaddish, whatever he's using. So whatever is extra, it's not needed for this mincha. He doesn't intend for it to be mechuv, to become kaddish. So even though it's in the klisharis, if he doesn't have das, if something goes in a klisharis that a person doesn't intend for it to become kaddish, it doesn't become kaddish. You need both. L'chayra, right? That's the pashtus, is that you need both the presence in the kli as well as the das, the intention that it should become kaddish. This is going according to the mandama that ain't chanami, no, that a klisharis in mekadesh even if the owner did not intend for it in mekadesh. Ravina amaloilam eimalach klisharis aim mekadesh in midas. No, klisharis is not mekadesh except midas. Ugzera. So why is it mekadesh beritzei and why are they mekadesh? Shemayoy might seem like klisharis l'chayil. We're worried that if you allow something that was once in the klisharis and now is on the Beritzein, you say it can become, it's not Kaddish. People will say something that was actually Makuddish can also become Ois Kaddish, which is not the case. Moiser of Zayder. Siddur Salechem is Habazichen Lachar Shabbos. If they place the lechem upon him and the bazichin, they're supposed to be placed on the shulchan on Shabbos and stay there for a week. But they delayed the kehanim and they didn't do it on time, and they first did it on Sunday. Behikter Sabazichen B'Shabbos Psula. And then he was makta the bazichin on Shabbos, it's possible. Because, what was it? Behikter Sabazichen B'Shabbos? Because it's going to be puzzle because the you have to have that is a full week that the lechem together with bazichin was on the, and you need 7 days that it's on the shulchan. And if you waited just 6 days from Sunday and then you makter there the bazichin, which is what you makter the bazichin, and that usually is kashers the lechem to be eaten by the kehanim, but it was only 6 days later. It's going to be possible. What should you do? They should leave the lechem and the bazichin for 13 days, not be makter bazichin the following Shabbos. Shafilu hu al shulchan yom rabah me'im b'kach klum. It's not a problem if the lechem and the bazichin are on the shulchan extra. As we're going to see, they don't become kaddish even though it's on the shulchan. So what does it help that it doesn't become kaddish that whole time, that whole first week until Shabbos comes, which still should be also because of this gezerah. Name gezerah shemayom makpidim et klishas pnim achutz. Maybe people will say that even though it's in a klisharis, it doesn't become kaddish because you could leave it there. They left it there for 6 days. They left it for, it looks like, for 13 days. Now, the truth is that the first 6 days it didn't become kaddish because we waited for the first Shabbos to become kaddish. There's no comparison. The shulchan was in the heichel, so nobody saw it. But so there's no reason to make a gzeira that people will mistakenly think that you could have something, you could leave something on the shulchan extra. But b'chutz in the chotzer, we have to worry about what people would see. Okay, we're going to have to unfortunately stop here. I think I'm gonna try to take you up on your offer to try to learn tonight, hopefully.